consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalyn Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spots that activate your soulgasmic business. Enjoy this light language activation as we begin to magnetize and monetize. Hello, my loves. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so honored to have you choose to listen to this episode. And let me tell you, this is going to be a really fun, juicy one, all about truth activations from a modern day oracle. If you enjoy this episode, please do leave a review. Take a screenshot of this podcast, shout it out on social media so that more people can tune into the frequency of this episode as well. On Instagram, it's Bold Sexy Warrior, and on Facebook, it's Rosalyn Fung Coaching Bold Sexy Warrior. It would mean the world to me for you to take a few minutes to share and review this on Apple iTunes, as I would love to spread more love and consciousness to the collective. Thank you, my loves. And in my experience as a visionary business soul coach, I have witnessed many healers and light workers struggle to monetize their spiritual gifts because they haven't accessed their inner permission to receive the financial prosperity that is their birthright. So if you're resonating with this, then you'll want to download my free digital guide that I created for you to unlock the 3 activation soul codes that allows healers, light workers, and coaches to activate their inner permission to monetize on their calling. You can go to download this at www.7figureconfidence.com/soulgasmic, SOULGASMIC. Now on to today's show, Truth Activations from a Modern Day Oracle. All right, so I have a few questions. I can't promise we're going to be answering all those questions, but I'm sure in some way we will, because this is going to be very, very potently powerful, spiritually led. So we will start with, what is a modern day oracle? What is unity consciousness? And how does this even happen? And how do you get to live a limitless and thriving life of passion and purpose? Okay, so tuning into all of this, I am welcoming my soul sister, my shamanic practitioner peer. We're taking shamanism together, and she's one of my SRT therapists, Elise Brathwaite. She is the founder and CEO of the Unity Consciousness Collective. She's a truth activist, a modern day oracle, and a spiritual facilitator. And oh my gosh, you guys, I have been in her beautiful energy as a client, as a peer, as a soul sister, and it's just, this woman is magical. Like, I am so excited for this episode. So with over 20 years of experience in the mystical arts and almost a decade worth of experience in spiritual response therapy, Elise offers sessions, classes, workshops, and tools to help people remove energetic and past life blocks so they can awaken their sacred wisdom, expand their luminosity, one of my favorite words, and experience spiritual ascension to live a limitless and thriving life of passion and purpose. Get ready to drop in, because all the light codes are going to be dropping into this one. Hi, Elise. Welcome,
Hello.
my love.
Hi, Queen. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
So well. Let's
so
hope.
Excited.
Here's the thing. Elise and I, just before we were going on live, we're talking about we're praying to the tech gods to make sure that there's no tech glitches on here, because every time we get on a Zoom call together, it gets so freaking glitchy because our galactic teams are so powerful.
Absolutely. So much energy moving that it just short
Oh
circuits the
my
system.
gosh.
So, yeah.
And you know how I heard about you first was because my husband, Dan, who many of you know as Sexy Silver Fox, we have had about 4 episodes through Pleasure in the Bedroom and Bank on this podcast, Activate Your Soulgasmic Business. He took a personal development course through Integrity Seminars with you, and I believe it was level 2.
It was sexuality.
It was sexuality. Okay.
It was sexuality. Yeah.
And he was telling you about this woman named Elise. He's like, oh my God, you would love her. You would just like immediately love her. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it was, I don't remember, it was one of the gatherings. So obviously pre-COVID.
Yeah.
A couple years ago that you and I were at under Integrity Seminars. And I was like, who is that lady? Dan's like, that's Elise. I'm like, oh, yes.
I love it.
My husband knows.
I love it.
Friends.
I know. I loved that. He sent me a message. I just think you would love my wife. And I'm like, I think I would too. And I don't know why. Right? So it was so awesome. And I just love his beauty and his ability to, to connect and also to just honor the goddess.
Yes.
Like,
Yes,
so many people still really afraid of that power. So I respect them deeply. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. So my love, I'd love for those of you, those people, our listeners who don't know about you yet, and I know you guys all need to, please share with us your journey, your story, how you got to be who you are today and be doing what you're doing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So, I really think it comes down to like who I am and who I still am is that, I was raised, by a white Irish Catholic mother, and my dad is, I would say Pentecostal Christian, Caribbean from Barbados. And, it was an interesting upbringing of and what I call like being in the middle, this, not belonging fully in white community, not necessarily family, but in, Caucasian community, and always having to, explain who I was, and my grandparents always having to explain, and then also receiving it on the other end within my Caribbean, family and people like, well, how does that work into the equation? And always just kind of observing this part of me that was like in the middle. And I had, this gift of seeing spirit when I was really young, like as long as I can remember, I had it. And at about 12 years old, my grandfather passed away and I shut down. I shut down big time. And part of it is because he came to me. I was actually away at a ski trip. And he came to me while I was there, and he was like waving goodbye and telling me he loved me. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I'm away at the ski trip for school. I lived in Montreal at the time, and my parents 2 days later show up to pick me up to, fly back to Edmonton actually. And, they walked through the door, and I said, what happened to Grandpa? And my mom was like, how did you know? And I'm like, well, he came to me, of course. And I shut down from there because I was very, very angry at God, and particularly at what I was made to believe was God, and so shut down and then, spent my teenage years really battling this concept of God, in the way I taught it. I went to Catholic school and I got kicked out of many religion classes. And realistically, I look back on it, I really have to laugh now. And I'm like, man, I had some guts, but I really I was asking questions. I really wanted to understand. And, in reflection now, there was a lot of years that I had a lot of resentment towards teachers. Like, what was your problem? But I realized that I was bumping up against them that was probably asking questions as well. And they really didn't have the answer, And so, then started my journey of like, well, I want answers. And so I went through a huge transitional period of trying to find my home within the religion context. Right. And I mean, actually it was a very beautiful journey. Like, I tapped into a lot of different practices that actually felt like home to me. Like many of them did, the where I would bump up against always was this idea that I had to go through something to get to God. And it was this really interesting experience of like, nope, that doesn't feel right. And so again, this part of me that's always been in the middle or sat in the middle, it's almost like I've had clarity of both sides always, you know, and also had a deep, deep intrinsic force that really, really made me operate from my truth, not somebody else's truth, including the being in the middle. Like, you know, I was like, I'm white, I'm black, I'm both, I'm me. You know, I am this conglomeration of both. I don't sit on one side or the other. You know, it's like I'm the Caribbean person at Heritage Days here in Edmonton who's, you know, winding my waist up at the Caribbean tent while eating Irish bread and stew, right? So it's like I'm going to do what I want to do, right? So yeah,
I would just come right beside you and dance away.
Exactly, right? So this being like, no, that and having that ability to have this real internal compass of that doesn't feel right. I'm not thinking it's right. Like it doesn't feel right. And so I kind of like, you know, abandoned that and just kind of, but I was clearly searching for some deep spirituality. And then I got pregnant with my son, my oldest son. And I had a really scary, at the time it was scary because I didn't have tools, experience of, you know, some darker energy finding me. And it was something that was, you know, in a sense sent to me because there was a lot of unhappiness around me being pregnant from his father's side. And it woke me up, woke me up in that moment. And it was like this download from spirit that I heard so clearly. It was like, it is time to wake back up. Your shields can never be down again. Like almost like enough time now denying your power, wake up. And I did. And so started the journey of being, you know, intuitive and which again, we all are, but really practicing the muscle of it. And also really breaking out of the box, right? And again, something I've always done. Like I didn't fit in this box in the cultural way, or this box in the cultural way, or this box in the religious way. And I grew up in Montreal. I didn't fit in the French box. I didn't fit in like there was all these things. And so finally I was like, I'm making my own box.
Yes.
And in fact, there's no walls to it. And it's just like a platform, like sailing on the ocean, right? Like I just was like, forget the boxes. And I've always,
this is why we're friends.
This is why we're friends, totally. And I just had this really deep, like even young, like knowing, like my mom was a young mother, 17 when she had me, and, you know, biracial child in the early 80s, young single mother, like all the reasons why that should go wrong. Everybody wanted her to give me up for adoption. She said no. So like I always had this underlying knowing that the world expected me to fail, right? Because of that. And I was like, oh, is that a box you're trying to put me in? Watch this, right?
Let's blow it up.
Let's blow it up. Exactly. So yeah. And then I had an experience between, so, you know, really started with my son, and I started my business as a nail technician at the time because I really wanted to be available to him at home. And, you know, I'd get so many messages for people as I was working with them one-on-one, and they'd say, oh my gosh, you know, it's exactly what I needed to hear. And at the time I would say two-part. I wasn't really aware that it was downloads happening, but I was also, there were times where I was like, what was that? But I wasn't, you know, willing to say what that was, partly because I wasn't sure what it was, right? So, and then I had before I had my second son, I had an ectopic pregnancy, and I knew something was wrong, and I was trying to get doctors to listen. I went into the hospital. I'm like, I'm telling you something is wrong. And the hospital actually sent me home. Like, you know, all moms worry. And I'm like, you're not freaking listening to me. And anyways, it ruptured that night and I almost died. So I was in the hospital for 7 days, and which again, I was like, it's funny, like when I reflect on it now, I was like, okay, like, can we move on here? Like, why are you because I had a son at home. I'm like, why are you keeping me here so long? Like, you know, and the doctor's like, I don't think you understand what really happened here. Like, you're lucky you're here. And then that's when it all really hit me. And I realize now that I had and I mean, this is going down a whole other portal, but I had a transfer student at the time, and that's essentially where soul will come in and hold space for my soul. And I know I went for a spiritual upgrade because I remember the day I came back. I was in a very, very horrible relationship with somebody who had a lot of narcissistic tendencies, like, and, you know, lots of cultural differences, like you name it, you know, cheating and all kinds of things. And there was this day when my youngest, let me backtrack that. So I had the ectopic pregnancy because I wasn't with my first son's father from the time I found out I was pregnant. And when I had the ectopic pregnancy, and that 3 months later, I ended up pregnant with my youngest son. And then, you know, all hell unraveled from there. And I know now, like in reflection, now I understand that I had a transfer student. I went for an upgrade because when he was about 3 years old, I had another situation happen with his father, and it was like the snap. And I remember laying on the ground and just being like, God, I cannot handle this. And if you are real, I need you to take this energy. Like, I have kids that need me right now. I cannot be worrying about this guy who's taking me out of my power and all these things. And it was literally, it felt like a switch. And I was back. And from that moment on, I ended up calling in nail clients, actually, different nail clients who did different things, and they worked with crystals, and one was a Reiki teacher. And then I took Reiki, and then I started working with Reiki and realized that I've always been working with Reiki. That's why people would come into my, you know, nail salon and just like unwind. And and so then I became a Reiki master teacher, and then I was working with that, like nails and Reiki. And then I kept seeing, I would start to see visions of people as I was working on them. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? What's going on here? And then I would see, they'd feel amazing and they'd come back with the same thing. And I was like, there's something here. Like, you know, this feels a bit like a Band-Aid, and not putting any, not devaluing Reiki at all. There's an absolute need for it in the world. And I honor so much that practice and where it brought me to. And I also know that was part of my soul progression. And I was like, isn't there something that can get this like from the root where it can be more permanent? Like, and then started the journey of me calling in what was next. And
I love that, Elise. I'm going to actually pause us here because we're going to leave people on a cliffhanger while we move into commercial. Because I really want to dive in deeper about your journey. This is so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Life is a flow, and enlightenment is simply harmonizing with the way life really is. Then you find that life is effortless, benevolent, and free of all suffering. Hey everyone, this is GP Walsh, and I want to invite you to my brand new radio show that's launching right here on OMTimes Radio called The Flow of Enlightenment. I've been a spiritual teacher for decades, and my greatest pleasure is being able to share with you these deep and highly practical spiritual ideas. So join me in The Flow every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and let yourself be transformed.
My loves, you know you're here as a soul-led leader to transform this world through the sharing of your passions and gifts. You are here to be in your warrior of light and align your business with your highest self. I'm Rosalyn Fung of the show Activate Your Soulgasmic Business. Let's elevate your business to the next expansive level. I invite you to flow into a business soul alignment discovery call with me at rosalynfung.com. That's ROSALYN Fun as in have some fun, Fung, and let's see how I can best hold space for you to align your highest self, magnetize your dream clients, and monetize on your soul mission. I can't wait to connect.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Do you feel like your emotions are all over the place? That's normal during this abnormal time. There are a number of ways to cope. Maintain a healthy routine, get enough sleep, eat nutritious food, and exercise at least 30 minutes each day. Schedule some time to talk with a friend or family member. And remember, you can always take a few deep breaths to feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
All right, welcome back, loves. Elise, please, I actually want to rewind a bit in your story. And you had mentioned transfer student. Now, I know what that means because I had to ask you to define it, but I know that a lot of our listeners are probably like, what's a transfer student? So and you explain things so beautifully. Can you explain what a transfer student is?
Absolutely, I would love to. So a transfer student is essentially, and I know sometimes this is hard for people to wrap their head around, and often people kind of get weirded out, but I assure you it's nothing outside of really normal. So if we think about the truth that we are energetic beings, and we are part of a huge collective energy source. So if my soul is meant to do something on the planet, something big, something whatever, and in this world where time is experienced as linear, even though it's not totally, but it's experienced that way, it would take me a lot longer to get the knowledge, the wisdom, the information, the consciousness that is needed, learned in this experience versus essentially exiting the body and going back to like soul school, right? Wow. So there's two types of transfer students. One is where you have a permanent transfer. And that is when, I like to say soul A or soul B, or essence A, essence B, okay? Because again, it's not like another human sitting in your body. You're not going to, that's not how this works. But essentially, imagine, and we've all heard of this before, like where people like have a near-death experience and they come back and their entire life transforms. Like they're like, all of a sudden I like, Mexican food, and all of a sudden I love to dance, and all of a sudden I run marathons, and like all these things. It's like literally a different person, literally. And some people, it's like, oh yeah, I was grateful for life. And yeah, that's definitely part of it. And the other part of it is that you're not actually the same soul expressing through the body. So the aspect of the original soul is still going to be there. The memory, like if you think of the body as its own operating system, so you can remember your family, you can remember, all these different things, although that does also relate to some people who do have amnesia and don't remember. However, and then there's also one called a temporary transfer. And that's where essentially if your soul is like, hey, I'm going to have to be part of this like huge wave of consciousness that's going to happen around 2012. So I'm going to have to be ready for that. And, I'm going to have this, and this, and these things play out in my life. So I don't need to like literally leave the physical body and come back from beginning into the womb and into babyhood and in all of that. I actually need to be an adult and somebody who can, take action in the world. So any takers, anybody who wants to come in and experience the world in 2006, like in 2006, and, be there for a bit, hold space in my body, experience, learn, continue what I'm doing while I go back to soul school. And again, because we are connected, another soul says, yeah, for sure. An aspect of spirit says, sure, and comes in, and that soul will have its own stuff. Hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to experience childbirth. I'm going to come in and experience this or that. And then when my soul's ready, it's like, hey, I'm going back in. And again, then what tends to happen is massive transformation. Like that's just innately what happens. So it's never like, cool, I'm this highly evolved being now, and I'm just going to, sit in my hut and not share that with the world. Like that tends to never be what happens. So, and we also don't have to necessarily have near-death experiences, but we can have traumatic experiences. Like even when I, so to speak, my soul, like the essence of the original soul was fully back in the body, I remember it because it happened in real time, but it was happening through a hugely emotionally response and charged situation. And the other reason why this was such an important piece for me is because when I started to practice SRT, which is where, ending up asking spirit for more direction on how to make a bigger impact and get things out from the root came from. And I remember being in my first class, my first training, and hearing transfer student. I kind of stopped the entire class. I was like, wait, like my whole body was in shivers. I'm like, I need you to explain this. And I remember just bawling my eyes out because I had no memory of my youngest son. And from about, I was in a very traumatic situation with him. He had aspirated a ton of meconium. Again, his father was horrible to me during birth and during all of it. So he was in the NICU and him and I were fighting and it was traumatic. I have those memories in my system, but I actually don't have many more. And it bothered me as a mom. Like, it bothered me so much. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, where was I? How do I not have memory of this? Like, you'll hear a lot of people are like, I don't really remember my childhood after, 7. Or they'll be like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, well, there tends to have been like a transfer student. Some people have more than one, but it's actually a really beautiful thing. Like, it's a really amazing thing that, all this aspect of consciousness can come and experience through our vessel, but never, it's not a takeover. It's not and it's never done without like consent. Like, it's planned. You know what I mean? So what a gift that I could go back to soul school and hold space within this vessel, and then again, the essence of me is still connected. It's like saying the essence of Christ consciousness leaves us and comes back. It's never gone. Right. So
that's right.
So yeah, that's what a transfer student is. And it's super powerful. And I know there's way more people who have experienced it than not. And in fact, the download I got a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, is that we're going to see more of it. And the reason we're going to see more of it is because of the shift we're seeing in the world right now, that we can't, like, we are going to absolutely have the next wave of light workers coming in through, babies and kids. But we have a lot of work still to do, and we can't start from the beginning. So we're going to see a lot of people, and some of it is even happening with, the health stuff going on right now in the world, but a lot of people having transfers, or who were in the process of transfers, and then like higher consciousness soul always comes back. And so
that is
it's going to be exciting.
That is fascinating. And I'm just going to put a plug in for you, Elise. I know that you often do Facebook Lives or even Instagram TV.
I do, yeah.
Where you you have these updates of these upgrades, and your Unity Consciousness Collective. Yeah. I know that you would dive in deeper into all of these as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So the Unity Consciousness Collective is a group that I started last year, actually, this time, and really beautiful. So it's a group of, conscious beings who are doing the work is essentially what I say. So, and doing the work, not meaning there's perfection, meaning that we're willing to work through the shadow, and we're like, God, this sucks. And we still are able to hold space in a loving way with each other, where we're like, yeah, like the human experience is real, and we're not here to, spiritually bypass and be like, it's fine. Yes. It's all love and light. It's like, no. This sucks right now, and I'm in the realness of it sucking, And yeah, we meet every single morning.
I love that about you. And those of you who who Elise may be new to you and you start following her, if you've been following her for a while, you know how real Elise is. Like, you do not sugarcoat anything. You're going through some shit. You're so transparent about it in a really spiritual, accountable way, and a way that really makes sense from a spiritual and energetic perspective. And it's so refreshing for you to be you as a soul-led leader to be that courageously vulnerable. So I just want to acknowledge you, Elise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you so much in terms of like, this is why, like, you're so relatable. It's like,
Thank you.
I just no mass at all about you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, again, that goes back to childhood, really, of being like, well, whatever, I'm just going to be me. And I'm so grateful for the gift of that now. Like, I'm realizing that this has actually always been my journey, always. And that I know is the ripple effect is that when I can stand in my authenticity, other people can too. And I appreciate you seeing that because, and it's not like, I'll be honest, it's not calculated. I'm not like, I'm going to go on and be real and vulnerable. I'm like, hey, I got something to say. I am pissed, you know, and I just kind of get into it. But the reason why I feel, again, as another expression of being a bridge for people is that there has been this idea and this concept that being a spiritual being and being spiritual means some ridiculous idea of perfection. You know, and it's like the perfectness. And I always say to people, the perfectness and the holiness is in the realness. It's understanding that it's a holy experience to wash your dishes and be angry at your husband. It is a holy experience. That's what's real. And your spiritual being is experiencing in that moment. Like they're not separate. It's not separate. It's not your only spiritual when you're gone meditating. You know, that's not what it means. It means that this entire lived experience is the holy experience and that you are the spiritual being expressing through this holy experience of, you know, wiping your baby's bum or going to work or getting angry in traffic. And the whole point of it is that we're going to have these moments and, you know, and I always say it's like we go through the darkness so that we can illuminate the light. You know, and it's like, I'm so mad at this guy. And then we go, okay, you know what? Why am I mad at the guy in traffic? Like, who really cares? And then you're like, you know what I'm angry about is I'm not feeling supported. Right. And that's, there's the truth. And then you're like, okay, so, and that's where we're like, can we always come back to that space of us that ultimately is love? It's ultimately love. And so, and that's really what ties into this, like the concept of, you know, what is a modern day oracle? Well, you know, oracles back in the day were like, you know, you'd go off into the mountains, you know, this setting that was sacred that you could only ask, you know, people who knew about them, right? And it was so elusive and so, and I get why. It was dangerous. It was dangerous at one point, right? So, and now there's this gift and this freedom that we have that we've incarnated at this time to be free. And so an oracle is essentially somebody that moves their egoic self aside and allows the channel of pure consciousness to come through. And so whether I'm in a grocery store or whether I'm, you know, conversing with, you know, a one-on-one client or whatever, it's that I am here to be the expression of spirit in perfect, and when I say perfect, like the perfectly imperfect form of it. And to speak this essence of truth, which is that the sooner we can dismantle this concept of the concept of perfectionism. You know, the truth is, as an archetype, perfectionism is there for us to care about what we're doing. That's what it's for, to take pride in what we're doing. That's what the true perfectionist archetype is for. When we turn it up to a volume that is now distorted, it's like, it's not good enough. And that's the complete opposite of what its intent is there for.
That's powerful. I've never heard it put that way before, that perfectionism is an archetype and the purpose of it. And yes, it's like when that's turned up too loud, it becomes a weakness. Wow.
It becomes our weakness.
Powerful.
Absolutely.
Powerful. Yeah. And then I also want to just, I want to just have our listeners just really tune into a wisdom bomb that you dropped earlier, which is we move in through our darkness so that we can illuminate, we can become more luminous. And it's so true. That's where the medicine is.
It is. And the thing is too, is that we had this really negative actually relationship with the idea of either darkness or particularly the ego. Like for so long, it was like, we need to get rid of the ego. We need to get rid of the ego. And so we actually have shamed our ego, like on a less than conscious level. We have shamed our ego, and our ego sitting there like the bad kid in the corner that actually just wanted a hug, you know? And it's like, no, we need to listen to our ego and say, hey, what's really going on? And then through that, it becomes this beautiful relationship, which is what unity consciousness is that I am in union with my shadow and my light, my masculine, my feminine, my humanness and my soul. I'm connected to the all. I am in inner unity because I have the ability to recognize that my shadow is not my downfall. It is my opportunity to remember myself again and again.
Oh my gosh, let's take a moment to breathe all of that in. That was so powerful, Elise. That was really powerful. And thank you for defining what unity consciousness really is.
Thank you.
How do we arrive to this place
of unity consciousness? I mean, I would say that if I was to map out the journey,
yeah.
I mean, I would say it's when we transition from living life to living life intentionally. Because we're all in it. That's the whole thing. Like we're all in it. It's how we're doing it. And the experience of, particularly with one of the things you're talking about is like, how do people bring in more abundance and understand they're worthy? It's when you become intentional with the living, because when you become intentional, you start to, and we have a similar mentor with Integrity Seminars who said something to me, is to remain in the question. And she broke it down to the question is the quest I on.
Yes.
And that stuck with me. It's like the quest that I'm on is to remain in the question of who I am. Who am I in my aggravation? Who am I in my sadness? Who am I in my judgment? Who am I? And can I continue to move back to I'm love? That, that these are just aspects of me that I'm experiencing in my humanness, but it's because of that egoic part of me that is also an operating system that I need. It's how your consciousness gets to express through, which is why we are all different and we are all unique and we are all meant to be. Because how boring would it be if consciousness expresses only one thing? And the other thing,
boring.
It'd be so boring. And the other thing too is that not only would it be boring, but essentially what we know to be evolution or the expansion of consciousness would cease to exist. And that's something people don't realize, which is why your uniqueness, meaning your unique shadow, your unique struggle, your unique trauma, is the opportunity to expand consciousness through. And we need all of it.
Oh,
because
everybody, just breathe all of that in. Elise, I'm going to have to pause us here because we need to go into commercial. But when we come back, Elise is going to guide us through a clearing. So stay tuned and get yourselves really in a place of comfort, quiet for the next section.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at OMTimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, welcome back, love. So I hope that you are settled into a place of comfort. I'm going to, before we move into the clearing, because I know me and Lise, I'm just like, girl, we cannot go over time. We're gonna get cut off. So let's let's get you sharing your handles first. How, if people are feeling really called, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Elise_Brathwaite, and Brathwaite is BRATHWAITE. So there's no I in that one. I know a lot of people get it mixed up with Braithwaite. You can also find me on Facebook as well at Elise Brathwaite. And that's also my website, elisebrathwaite.com. So makes it pretty easy. And of course, the Unity Consciousness Collective is on my website as well, and that's something that then they would kind of roll into if that's something they wanted to explore. So yeah, that's how you can find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and I absolutely do encourage you to all go check out this gorgeous, beautiful soul. So Elise, we're going to do a clearing. If you can explain what that is, and then we're going to share the intention of it, and then we'll take the rest of the time. I'll come in at the end with the light language to really activate everything as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, basically what SRT session is bypassing the conscious and the subconscious mind, and we're really moving into the soul consciousness. So it is moving into the Akashic records, it's moving into the records of consciousness, and to really see what and where we need to clear, and how far back we need to clear in order to clear whatever it is we're looking, whatever the intention is. And so, intention for today, I think, is to connect to the deeper source of love that is within us, of worthiness. And in that, what I'm kind of hearing is connecting to your highest state of consciousness, which is the part of you that will start to know what you know, trust what that inner gut intuitive feeling that is saying, go do the thing, or go take the course, or, take the leap, when, our conscious mind and even our subconscious mind can start filtering through to block us. So that's kind of the intent for today. And then, yeah, Roz will spruce us all up with some amazing light language. So let's hear where we need to go. Hey, sounds good. Thank you. So I was just checking in here. Thank you. Spirit and I want to work as a team. Thank you. And so please clear and remove any blocking programs, openings, interference, negative energies. Permanently seal any openings or cracks and fill all portals with love and light. Please remove all extra links. And everybody who's listening, everybody who will listen, and anybody who will find this years down the road, that let them understand and know that this is finding them at the right and perfect time, that the healing still applies and is finding them exactly when they need it. Please remove all extra links in all of our High Self Committee chains. Please clear, remove, elevate, and educate all spiritual committee members, including High Self, to the highest level of consciousness on Chart 3. Please reduce the size of all spiritual committees to the minimum size for the maximum effect. And please update and download all spiritual committee members, including High Self, to the highest level of consciousness. Thank you. And download them with all new wisdom, information, truth, light, understanding, and potentials in the one universe, including the entire SRT system. I'm just hearing at this time that we're also going to be upgrading everybody's High Self Committee. So for anybody with members sitting on their High Self Committees that are not ready, willing, or able to move forward with them to this next level of consciousness, this next level of healing, this next phase of life, we ask that you reassign them to another soul where they can serve on that committee. For any new members that are joining anybody's High Self Committee, we ask that you provide them with the right and perfect intellect required to clear all negative programming, to activate all levels of healing, and to establish a new plan based on everything that is positive and in each individual's best and highest good for them in this lifetime, here and now, supporting 100% positive change, 0% negative. Thank you. Please reduce the size of all spiritual committees to the minimum size for the maximum effect. Clear all bodies of negative programming, and clear all spiritual committees serving all of us of any and all programs created by spirit, including replications, mirror images, and rebuilding. Please reduce my ego to less than 3%. Help me to suspend all judgment and keep me 100% neutral, and open channel for healing, wisdom, information, love. Thank you. Please clear and remove any extra souls or addictions to souls. And please set up a triple shield of protection. Thank you. And am I prepped to work? Am I clear? Thank you. And how long to prep everybody to work and everyone's high self? Thank you. And is everybody clear? No. And do I have permission to work with everybody who's listening now, will be listening? I do. Thank you. And who am I working with? High self, and everybody's working with high self, and all of our spiritual committees are the minimum size for the maximum effect. And the lowest level of consciousness is into the new paradigm of this new one universe. And all of our spiritual committees members are now downloaded, working with the highest levels of knowledge, wisdom, truth, light, understanding, and potentials in the one universe. Thank you. And thank you, percent ego, and we're neutral. Thank you. So where do we need to go? So we're going into some real-time clearing right now. And real-time clearing essentially means when spirit is like, I always often say, it's kind of like, you know, when you delete your files on your computer, but then you have to go delete the trash, right? And so that's essentially what a real-time clearing is. It's like, okay, there's been work that's being done, and you know, all these things are coming into awareness, and I'm starting to know what I know, and something still feels like it's kind of heavy off, making us feel sluggish. So clearing everything and anything that can be cleared without research, so we can dive into exactly what is most important, most direct, most necessary for all the listeners. Thank you. Is that done? Yes. So where are we going here? Thank you. And so we're going to some programs. Thank you. And we're going to programs of self-punishment. Thank you. And so we cannot clear them without research. So we're going to ask Spirit to bend time a little bit here. And so this is established in Bardo. So where we sit down and write out the script of our lives. Thank you. And doesn't have past life roots. Yes. So, and this is us as a mother. Thank you. And thank you. And group. So what kind of mother? So high priestess. So this is a past life. And again, a lot of people are like, what is happening? So when we work in group collective, I often say it's kind of like, you know, everybody who goes to university has the same courses that are necessary to take to get a certain degree. Then they have their electives. So when we're doing group clearing, we're clearing the courses that were necessary to take. Okay, so meaning we've all experienced a lifetime where we have been a high priestess and where the conflict was between us and a group. So thank you. And the hurt or harm, thank you. So was at the hands of the group towards the high priestess. Thank you. Was it mental, emotional, physical? It was all of them. Thank you. And thank you. And simple, serious, or death resulting in death. What were the energies? Fear and abandonment, frustration, abuse, greed, guilt, hate of God, hate of life, hate of men, hate of self, hate of women, anger. Thank you. Helplessness and apathy, injustice, appeasement, betrayal, intolerance, jealousy, judgment, low self-esteem, conflict and negativity. Thank you. Resentment, restlessness, cruelty, depression, self-destruction, self-limitation, self-punishment. Thank you. Limitation through what? Through depression. Thank you. What else? Spiritual suicide, self-sabotage, toxic shame, unforgiveness, unhappiness, unworthiness, and failure. Clearing. And one of the things as we're clearing this energy, you may start feeling energy moving, or kind of like, I don't know what's going on, and what is this podcast I'm listening to? What's happening here? But it's to know and trust that the energies are shifting and moving. Energy is never created or destroyed. It's only transformed. And so when we are clearing this energy, we're clearing the energy that was rooted. We're back to where it started. What I'm really hearing is that this energy, and I'm going to just clear here, this energy on all, thank you, layers, levels, minds, bodies, fields, clear and remove them, opening everybody up to a love of self, to joy, to permission, to support, to spiritual awakening, to every positive word in the universe's largest dictionary. And I'm simply seeing that this is when, and it's interesting because whether you are identify as a woman, as a man, as they, the relevance is more about the piece that your soul is connected to when you stood out from the crowd, and when the crowd was judging you, and when the crowd didn't like what you were doing, and when the crowd was, you know, condemning you, or when the crowd, so what that has done, and this is often, I'll get a split screen, it's like, so that's what happened, and here's the effects. The effects are now you're playing small. The effects are now you bring in self-sabotage. The effects are now you have big ideas, but you don't really know how to get them off the floor. Or one of the things I'm particularly hearing right now is huge blocks around support, but more specifically around sisterhood. And now, as much as I'm saying sisterhood, this is definitely still connected for men. So brothership, sisterhood, but it's those sacred containers that we create. Like, you know, you're the sum total of the 5 people that you're connected to most, right? So it's kind of like, do you really have supportive people around you? Do you really have cheerleaders around you? Are there elements of jealousy? Are there elements of, I don't want to say this to this person because they may not like it? You know what I mean? Whatever it is. So again, it's not just about, sisterhood, but that's kind of what's coming up. So it's the times that we've been betrayed, where we've been shut out, where our light, and some of it is without even knowing, right? I didn't even know that they thought this of me, or I didn't even know that, my light was shining so bright that it intimidated people, or, and that's where, again, we go into hiding. So we're clearing this life and all discordant energies related to this lifetime, and inviting everybody now to remember that this was part of a role and script that you wrote for yourself in that lifetime. And as I say to everybody, if you've ever taken a course before that you've paid for and graduated from, you would never take it again. You would never retake it. If you had your degree, you would never say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go back and take that whole degree again. You wouldn't do it. So you don't need to do it this time either. And what that means is, yes, you're going to push through the egoic part that is saying, hey, I'm still scared. You're going to push through the energies of, I'm not sure if I'm worthy. And we needed to clear where it was really rooted, because this is the challenge, is that, some people are like, I'm trying, right? I can see other people doing it, and I just don't know what's getting in my way. So this is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity now to know that is clear, and that is now time for you to show up. And, I always say worthiness is, and money and abundance and all those things is all connected to your worthiness, and because it's just energy. And worthiness is where we actually remember who we really are. Because if you were to ever know yourself fully as the goddess that you are, or the god that you are, you would never shut the door in your own face. You would never do it. And so my invitation today is, when you look in the mirror, today or tomorrow, whatever, is that you see that spark of consciousness that is unique and has shown up in this lifetime, here and now, to be the fullest expression of it, to release the self-judgment, release the self-condemning talk and the shame of, like, I'm not doing enough, and step into the richness and the fullness of your in perfect time, in perfect order. Remembering that fear is simply the absence of love. And that sometimes, I tell you, I get it, shifting out of this programming that is in our physicality can feel like you're sitting at a fire. And I always say this to my participants, is that it will feel like you're going to burn. It will feel like you're going to die. And the truth is you never will. And you will come out on the other side, born again, renewed, completely shocked at how long it took you to do this thing. Thank you. Is that done? Has this been cleared? Yes. And is that enough to clear self-punishment? And it is. Thank you. So please clear this program of self-punishment, root, trunk, and seed, permanently removing it out of all 13 bodies, back to spirit, out of all spiritual committees, and activating all levels of healing. Thank you. Is that done? Yes. Thank you. And anything else? Yes. And so we're going to the healer archetype. So please clear, heal, harmonize, balance, and bless the healer archetype, restoring it to its full positive potential. And the healer archetype is our desire to be whole mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And this is one archetype that we can actually only access once a blocking program has been removed, and it is actually our ability to self-heal. So self-heal in whatever way that ends up showing up for you. Sometimes, like I said, it is deciding, I'm going to go take the program, or go do the thing, or go book the healing session, or whatever, but it is actually like, hey, I am worthy. So thank you. Is that done? Yes. Anything else on this chart? No. Thank you. And so Spirit is being very conscientious of time, and I love it. And so we're going into mop-up. So please clear 100% of the items on the mop-up list, including all of the stacks. Thank you. And what percentage of that mop-up list has been cleared? 100. Thank you. And has brain restructuring been complete? Have all pre-programmed illnesses, accidents, Alzheimer's, dementia programs been cleared? Thank you to my high self and everybody else's high self agree they are clear. And is everybody soul free? Yes. Are there any programs coming up that need to be cleared? No. And what level of consciousness are we all operating at now? Operating nicely into the new paradigm of the new one universe. Thank you. And what percent accuracy and what percent completion? So thank you so much. Thank you, Roz.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elise. Let's bring this in with the light language. Breathing in, Morokoratia, Nenakoratia, Morokoa, Manakia, Morokoratia, Menanakia, Morokor, Morakua, Morakia. So just taking a moment to hang out with the sensations of this clearing and this light language transmission. Trusting that everything that's happening within you is for you. The tingling, the eye fluttering, the solidness, the light energy, whatever it is that you're experiencing, the tears coming through, there's no right or wrong. Just allowing, surrendering. And so I also invite you to journal anything that's come through for you today. Thank you so much, Elise. Please do.
Thank you for having me.
This was so powerful, so potent, and we just deeply desire that you received all the truth activations that you needed in this perfect divine time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Oh.
Oh. I love you too, beautiful. Have an amazing day.
Thank you. You as
Thanks
well.
for having me. Okay, bye.